In this Picmonic, we explain the differences between the top-down versus bottom-up approaches, as seen by the therapist in the top-down convertible versus a fellow therapist with his bottom-up, as they try to help their clients with different approaches.
The client is shown as holistic, as shown by the whole-istic human, and composed of many different interrelated parts.
This allows the therapist to gain an understanding of these intersecting parts and helps them understand not only the deficits, but the client's strengths. The top-down approach is often compared to many biopsychosocial models, as displayed by the Bio-Brain Social Book, where the therapist studies the problem and first focuses on the client's roles and desired goals instead of the deficits or diagnoses. With this approach, the therapist will evaluate the client, trying to gain an understanding of how the client's functional status will impact their daily occupations, and will then set about creating a treatment plan based on their ability to engage in those occupations. Since this approach is a client-centered occupation-based approach, shown by the client in the center, the occupational therapist will guide the client to seek and understand their own strengths and encourage change. The client sets goals during top-down therapy, with the client's self-actualizing tendencies or desires, and encouraged by the therapist to reach their full potential, as seen by the client setting goals and being placed in the driver's seat as the one in control. Along with the client setting the goals, the top-down approach often has the client using compensatory strategies, as displayed by the client using compensation for a strategic game of chess. These modifications to the tasks allow the client to avoid or use techniques in place of dysfunction. On the other hand, the therapist may choose to use a bottom-up approach, focusing on the client acquiring, remediating, restoring deficits first, before delving deeper into the client holistically. In this Picmonic, we see this bottom-up approach as the character fixing the deficit. The therapist will concentrate on the dysfunction and try to restore the previous function. This type of therapy is based on traditional medical models, as shown by the old traditional medical model doctor attending to the medical problem displayed. The therapist sets goals when using this bottom-up approach, and is displayed by the therapist wanting to fix the table leg. Other restorative strategies can be seen by the therapist restoring the strategic game of chess. The therapist will guide the interventions up or down to fit the task demand and allow the client to return to optimal performance. So let's summarize the difference between the top-down versus bottom-up approaches. The top-down approach has the occupational therapist viewing the client holistically and has the client setting their own goals, whereas the therapist, when using the bottom-up approach, will create all the goals and focus first and primarily on the deficits/dysfunction in order to return the client to optimal function.
When it comes to occupational therapy, there are two approaches. One is approached from the top of the hill, riding down in a convertible, and the other, well, the other starts at the bottom with their bottom up. Let's start with the convertible, shall we? As the therapist drives down, they pass by a holistic human.
Can you help me? I really need to get to my chess tournament, but I can't get there with my broken leg.
The therapist sees that they need help, but also they see the whole human for who they are. They are comprised of biology, brains, and have a social life that they would like to get back to. But they're stuck in the center of this roundabout with a broken leg. So the therapist picks them up and puts them in the driver's seat because the client sets the goals. Together, they make it to their strategic chess game, where she is compensated and able to take charge of her life again. At the bottom, we see another therapist with a different approach.
For the rest of the story, check out Picmonic.com and sign up for a free account. There, you can also take Picmonic's quiz. The quiz automatically sets up your daily quiz by using spaced repetition algorithms based on questions you've missed or struggled with, to make sure you study what you need when you need to. And while you're there, check out the rest of our Biomechanical Approaches Picmonics. We've got all the content you'll need to remember. Everything from top-down versus bottom-up approach, rehabilitative frame of reference, biomechanical frame of reference, and so much more, so you can lock down on everything you need to know forever. Play, quiz, and spaced repetition. Efficient, effective, and research proven to increase exam scores.